Hello friends, I've got a bit of an oddity for you today, I think. Corsair. You probably know this brand. I mean, they're everywhere. They seem to produce almost everything when it comes to computer parts, memory, power supplies, cases, of course, and a lot of other things. What you may not know is that Corsair was founded in 1994 in California, and this case that I came across at a recycling center, in fact, is, as far as I can tell, about that vintage. I would say it's the mid-90s, sometime might be 1996, around then is my best guess. But it just kind of surprised me when I saw this logo, because of course it's not the modern Corsair logo, it's an older one. When I saw this, I thought, oh, did Corsair make computers? But I think the better bet is that this is in fact just Corsair case, or actually more likely is that it's just a generic case, because I swear I've seen other cases just like this. I think they were actually pretty common for these kind of generic builds back in the mid-90s, and Corsair just slapped their sticker on it and pass it off as their own, which may have been something that they were doing essentially back in the mid-90s when they were just getting started, didn't have a lot of products yet and so forth. So the other possibility, of course, is that someone just built this computer, got a generic case, and slapped a Corsair logo on it. I don't know how likely that is. It seems less likely than Corsair actually selling this case themselves back in the mid-90s. So yeah, it is an AT style case, which is what you think it is in fact from about 1996 maybe. It has all the standard components of an AT case, and it is heavy too. It doesn't have a turbo button on it, but it does have a key lock. So this leads me to believe that that this was sold around the time that essentially the AT style cases were going out of style, and the ATX cases were coming in and replacing them. So that's my best guess. But I thought we'd open it up, take a look at the inside today, and hook it up to a monitor and see what's going on in the hard drive. I've had this computer for a couple of years, and I did look at it back when I first got it, and I cleaned it up a little bit. I think I even used some Retro Bright on the front panel and missed these covers, but I honestly don't remember what actually is on the inside in terms of the hardware, or if there's any other clues about the origin of this particular computer that might be on the inside. So I thought we'd take a look, hook it up to a monitor, and see what we see. There may be nothing on the hard drive at all. I really don't remember. So we get to kind of discover that together. A couple things worth pointing out here before I open it up, and that is the serial and actually serial here and parallel port. Again, pretty standard of AT style cases, and you have the AT style connector here for a keyboard, and looks like we've got a VGA card of some sort, so we'll take a look at that when I open it up. Sound card, and then a Ethernet card down here for internet connection. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, I mean, this would have taken an old style, serial mouse and an old style AT keyboard. So I'm gonna have to dig those up from downstairs. Here in the basement is where I keep those. I don't use them that often, and when we get the computer running here. Now, taking off and putting back on these AT style cases is always a ton of fun. Man, this one's really on here. Now, as a little bit of an aside, I hate the way that these these lift off cases work, and that they weren't meant to be very user friendly. They weren't meant to really be removed all that often, if at all. But I do like the way the case actually looks, at least the front of the case. Man, they were a pain to work with. There we go. Okay, let's see what we've got on the inside here. Okay, so I think what I'll do is I'll just pull out the cards here, and I won't bore you with that. I'll just show you the cards that we've got. It's not many, it looks like 3 cards. The hard drive is still in there, so that's good. Should be something there. And it looks like everything's intact and pretty clean. I mean, I would have taken some compressed air and blown out the dust bunnies at some point. Okay, so I'll pull out the cards and I'll show you those one by one. Before I do that, I wanted to point out a couple things on top of the computer here, actually. I was kind of hoping that the power supply would be a Corsair power supply, so there'd be at least something on the interior that might indicate that Corsair had some kind of hand in putting this together. But as far as I know, Corsair never made whole computers like Gateway or Dell or something like that. So there's really, I looked around on the inside and there's really no indication that Corsair did anything but slap a sticker essentially on the case. And that's assuming they had any hand in that, because maybe they didn't. Again, maybe someone just put that computer together, someone else just got that generic case and decided to put that sticker on. I mean, we'll never know whether what happened there. But the CD-ROM drive, it has a date of September 2002 or 2000 on it, and I don't think this computer is of that vintage. I think it's a few years older than that. I really don't think you would have gotten a computer, an AT style case in 2000. I think those were long gone. I mean, I don't think you'd be able to go out, at least retail, and get an AT style case. So I think that was added later. I think that's just aftermarket, and someone put that CD-ROM drive after the fact. So let's go ahead and pull out those cards. Alright, so without the cards in the way, I was able to take a better look at the motherboard and what was going on in there. And what I found is that there is actually a AGP port in there. I'm not sure you can see it, but it is up under there underneath the cables. So it's got one AGP port, 4 PCIs, and 2 ISA ports. So that's kind of neat. I wasn't actually expecting to see the AGP port in there, but it's there. Also, the CPU, that's a socket 7 CPU. I don't remember what it is. Hopefully we'll figure that out when I turn on the computer. But socket 7 would most likely be the original Pentium MMX, or a K5, K6 AMD processor. So that pretty squarely puts it about 1995 to about 1997, if I remember correctly. That's about the time that the socket 7 was most commonly found in computers. So I think we're on the trail, as far as dating this computer to about 1996, give or take a year. I think is a pretty good guess. So in terms of cards, again, we've got these 3 cards in there, and there's nothing terribly special here, but we do have a graphics card. It's the Trident Edo Micro. It's the version TD9680. And from what I could find out about it, they should have about 1 to 4 megabytes of memory. And considering that these 2 expansions are filled, maybe we do actually have a 4 megabyte version here of this PCI graphics card. And yeah, Trident was around for a long time, at least 30 years, I believe. From the late 80s up until I think around 2010 or so, Trident was still making things. But yeah, this was a very common card, and you would find this again in a lot of computers around the mid 90s. In fact, this has copyright 1994 on it. So this card probably was a couple years old when it was put in this computer. And we've got a sound card, a Sound Blaster, of course. This is a Sound Blaster 16 with CT4170, the part number, and this is an ISO card. Not anything super special, again. But this actually does have 1997 on it, so it is possible actually the computer is of 1997 vintage, or this could have been added after. But that's a good guess that it's about 1997 or so. I think we'll have a better idea when we actually see what the processor is there. So yeah, this would have had a wide range of compatibility. Especially around the time of Windows 95, 98. And then we've just got this this Ethernet card, which is kind of interesting. This almost certainly was added later, I would think. Not something I don't think you typically have. It is possible. It's possible you'd have this in a home computer. At the time, but more common was just a standard modem with a phone jack. But yeah, this is an older one. It's an ISO card. Yes, NetWare. So yeah, those three cards. Again, pretty good compatibility, I would expect. If we've got Windows 95 in there, Windows 98 loaded. So let's turn on the computer, attach a monitor, and see what's on the hard drive. I think I'm all ready to turn it on. I've got just a generic AT keyboard, some really awful cheap speakers, but I just kind of wanted to see if the sound is working. So they'll do. And then an AT. Or I should say a serial style mouse. I don't have too many of these actually, since they're getting harder to find. And then my rather vintage but pretty trustworthy Gateway LCD. So I am starting this up for the first time. So you're all seeing this along with me, and if there's any problems, then we get to deal with those together. So let's go ahead and see what happens here. Okay, so we've got we do have a Pentium MMX, 166 megahertz, 32 megabytes of RAM. It's seeing the Quantum Fireball hard drive. Don't know what size it is yet, but yeah, keyboard is locked out. Unlock the key, so we got a locked computer here, and I do have a set of standard keys. It looks like this is just a regular old key lock. So let me go get that, and we'll give it another try. So thankfully, I do have some keys on hand. These are really good to have if you're dealing with old computers, because so many of them do have these locks on them. So let's see here. Okay, so let's reset. Should work. So I guess I should be glad it's at least posting here. There we go. Oh, invalid system disk. So that's probably just because there's nothing on there. It might, the hard drive probably was wiped at some point, but at least it works, and it is a Pentium MMX. So again, the best guess is probably about 1997, and at that point in time, the Corsair computer would have been, our company would have been 3 years old. So it's very possible that they were already shipping cases, in this case, a fairly generic computer case. So I think that's it. There's really nothing else in the computer that I could find that was Corsair, but yeah, this is kind of neat. I really like the logo, and in fact, I'll give you a close-up here in a second of the logo. I rather like it, and I kind of wish they had stuck with this design. Yeah, it appears to be just they stuck their sticker on this case, or someone else did at some point there in the mid '90s. So that's still pretty neat, and it was a pretty good find, I think, at the local recycling center. I always find neat stuff there, and I've got a lot more to show. So please stick around, come back. Look for future videos. I got a lot more units here, computer systems. Some like this where it's just the computer, and quite a few others where it's the whole system. So I'll leave you guys looking at a closer view of this vintage logo, Corsair.